All right, and we're live. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the PEO Speedwagon podcast again. Certainly do appreciate it. And again, another special episode. This time we're joined by Jim Scheetz. Welcome, Jim. Now, Jim, he's a CEO and CFO with a pretty extensive background in multiple industries, banking, manufacturing, currently with ZQUARED. And extremely, extremely lucky to have you here today to learn about not only your career and experience there, but also some of the experiences you've had with PEOs in the past. And so, Jim, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's squared. You just say it like it's like with an S.
There we go.
It just has a Z there instead. It's not only hard to say, it's hard to type on a keyboard because you got to get that Z and Q at the same time.
Well,
So it's kind of crazy, but it's the idea behind it is doubling,
there we go.
squared, the number squared, just doubling in size, doubling in just growing at a pace that doubles our company annually. And we've done it for several years, and we're getting to the point where it becomes a much steeper mountain every year. So we're doing everything we can to keep that pace, and it's a lot of fun. Great culture, good company, smaller than where I've been in the past, but I wanted to kind of move away from some of that toxic stress of large organizations. So
yeah,
and I'm feeling really good about it. So there you go.
That's fantastic. How long have you been there?
I started with Squared in May of this year,
Okay.
so months, not years. But I've been able to make an impact and improve the quality of life for a lot of people. So it's been good.
Nice. And this
And bringing
organization,
the PEO into the picture, I think, is going to be great, not only for our existing staff, but for all of our new employees, because we get this full menu of benefits that we otherwise wouldn't be able to have. That's one thing I've learned about PEOs in my life. Your population of pick any PEO is hundreds of thousands of people in a risk pool for benefits. So, that brings our cost of benefits down and brings in. So the PEO thing for me is we get better benefits for less money. And then we get the added benefit of having really an HR administrative staff at our beck and call to do what we need to do to keep things flowing. And companies of a size just can't afford to staff HR and then pay outside attorneys or whatever else you do to try and navigate that world of employment, and keep yourself out of trouble. Employees, if they're evil in any sort of way, they can find ways to put you in a corner before you ever knew you got there. And it's happened to me. I mean, I heard these buzzwords. My first call was to Insperity and said, hey, okay, this person wants to work remote. And they said this, and they said this, and they said this. And they said, well, those are all words dealing with accommodation, and you need to do that. But that doesn't mean that you cannot continue you can still manage them as an employee. You can ask them to report what they're working on and all that stuff, but those are accommodations, and you have to do that. I don't know that I would have done it that way had I not had counsel from someone with a very quiet voice that wasn't as excited about it as I was. It's like,
yeah,
you know where I'm coming from. So yeah, I know we're going down that PEO road awful fast, but it just, it really, we're doing it right now. And I think that it's going to add a tremendous amount to our ability to hire people, because we're going to have a 401k. We're going to have pre-tax benefits. We're going to have a cafeteria plan, HSA, life, dental, vision, all the stuff, what you would see from a Fortune 500 company that we'll be able to offer. And it'll, I think, be a big feather in our cap in terms of our ability to do that.
Absolutely. I'm sure you would think it's been more impactful for being at this smaller organization, because some of the organizations you've been in the past were significantly larger, of course, but still utilized a PEO. The Z squared that you're at now is squared is is what, between 20 and 30 employees, is that correct?
We're like just peaking over 40.
Okay, right, just over 40,
We've
which is
hired
right
4 of those.
around the sweet spot for what most organizations use a PEO in their size. So the impact is usually greatest and most felt there. Have you seen that it's more of an impact on the smaller organization?
Yeah. Oh, tremendous. And that is truly where you don't have the resources to manage the HR process. But I mean, think about it. This, can I say the name, Ryan?
Sure. Yeah.
So we're talking to TriNet, and they offer their technology is pretty impressive in the sense that they bring this onboarding process and they bring 5 different recruiting sites, all high quality, to the table, and it's all included, right? So our HR guy, who's just banging them out all over the place, sending, job offers, roles, all the things. I mean, he's excited as all get out because this will be a tool that can help him navigate that recruiting world to try and bring employees to us that we could really use and help us grow faster than we have been growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're kind of at that point where we're beginning to duplicate silos, if you will, of, so this was the business model. Everybody in that business model, in that silo, is taxed. So we got to create a few more that we can spread that wealth out and, be able to take care of the customer the way we need to and the way we see fit. And that is all going to just duplicate itself and multiply. So, 2 more brand managers and 2 more content people and 2 more advertising folks, and just building these columns of business that all report up through that brand manager. And I think that that's really going to be a very strategic and helpful way that we're going to be able to continue to keep growing.
Yeah.
And all of that's just part of process.
I think about it, there are a myriad of PEO buyers and buyer archetypes, and some will buy for what some will refer to as the simple button. It's just easy. It kind of takes everything, it puts it into one place. What I observe very early in getting to know you and through the different businesses we've worked with you on, is you're using it as an engine of growth. Whether that growth is to deliver more tools and resources into the business, to focus individuals on their core competencies and give them time and energy. It's tools to bring people into the business through better benefits and be able to kind of more efficiently spend capital on your attraction and retention strategy. Or it's giving you more tools and resources to address other areas of the business too, right? So you've kind of like how you think about the compliance, how you think about going into other states, like just kind of operationalizing things in the way that you have has used the PEO for one of its potential impacts, which is growth. And I just saw that. And then ultimately, you were unwilling to operate inefficiently, which is spend time on things where you're not making money or you're not growing profits. And so I love that.
And in a place we don't know, we really don't have the education and the expertise to really navigate that HR world. I mean, that is a whole different space that I've learned not to be involved with. It's just like, I know enough to catch the buzzwords and the lights go off, and but then it's really a great resource to keep us out of trouble, to help guide our path forward, to have handbooks and policies that really are meaningful and meet the needs of our staff, plus people that we're hiring. And Yeah, it's and I even think, most larger companies, they kind of get to a place where they have an HR department before they grow to be big enough. I was the CFO of a $500 million company revenue wise, and he was with Insperity before I joined them. And he was the kind of guy that he didn't want an HR department. And so when Insperity came on and started doing their job, it totally freaked him out. I mean, and it was 1,000 employees, over 1,000 employees, but it was the best thing he had ever done, and it was just totally out of his comfort zone, and he bailed on it, and he sold the company since then, so I know that there's an HR department now, but there never was one when I was there. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, and that was really my introduction. I knew people at Insperity, but that was kind of my introduction to how one didn't go so well. But it wasn't because of the delivery process. It was the receiver that was having a hard time with it, because they were trying to really help him be compliant and do all the right things, and he wanted no part of that.
Yeah. And I think
no names, no company names,
no
people names.
No, redacted for the innocent. The and that's why we focus so much, and I think you recognize this. It's about alignment, and alignment not only of the PEO to the business, but also to the psychographic of the business owner, business leader, decision maker. Right? There's things in a PEO relationship that can be really powerful, but if they don't align with how you think about the concept of employment, even if the PEO can do better things, you're going to either reject them, or you're going to over scrutinize their impact, and you're going to make it feel like, hey, this isn't a good use of time or money and resources. So very much about kind of puzzle piecing together the right PEO with the right, with that business owner, business leader's mindset is really key. And I think and that's why what I love about yours is that it's focused on growth. When people come into the world of PEO as a sales professional, as a leader, like Rick is doing through PEOMG, like you want to talk to, overarchingly, you want to talk to people about how they grow their business and how the PEO can represent a vehicle for that growth. Like that is the ideal conversation. It's the one we get most excited about. We'll have the ones where it's like we can save you a few bucks on benefits, or we can, consolidate vendor relationships. But the ones that are most fun are where you're operationalizing for growth, and you feel like that service that you have in that of a PEO represents a way to support that organization's growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why we became such fast friends. That and kind of jumping more to the personal side, about the coolest guy I know on the face of the earth, between your motorcycling and your, being a scratch golfer, you kind of just do it all. So tell people a little bit more about Jim, like the person, because you are accomplished well outside the world of business.
Or
what you did this weekend. How about that? You were telling us a little bit before the show started.
Yeah, this weekend, a buddy of mine and I, we got this really cool Airbnb down in, it says it's in Salem, Missouri, but it's probably 20 miles south of Salem, right outside of Montauk State Park. And the guy is awesome. I mean, he has a little RV park there, mostly for fishermen, fly fishermen, but he's started this cabin that he built is like brand new. It sleeps like 8 people, 4 couples kind of thing. But everything about it, I mean, he's got Starlink because you're in the middle of nowhere and phone service is really bad. So Starlink brings all the YouTube TV, and so you had all the comforts of home.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a guy that literally puts coffee in the pantry and filters, and you don't have to worry about bringing all that stuff, and shampoo and body wash in the shower. And I mean, it was really like well appointed, well taken care of. I think it was probably built in the last year, but anyway, so really great place. And then we rode on Saturday. I think we rolled out at about 8:30 and didn't get back to the house until 9:30 p.m. And my buddy Mike he planned the trip, and he bit off a little more than he could chew. It was a long day. It was a long day, but 786 for the weekend. That's from, St. Charles area down to Salem and then back, and all the riding in between. But it was a beautiful day. The weather's this time of year, it's just, the trees are just starting to turn. We haven't had really we're going to start getting this cold weather. Like the next 2 mornings, it's going to be a frost warning here. So that you'll start seeing the trees really change a bunch. But it was just comfortable. You didn't have to, it wasn't smoking hot, and it was just beautiful day, beautiful roads, and we just cruised. It was awesome. I've done a lot of trips. Go ahead.
Is that one of the longest rides you've done, or what's one of the longer ones you've done?
Well, there was 6 of us. It was kind of like wild hogs, right? There were 2 orthodontists, a chiropractor, a CPA, a jeweler, and a lawyer. So pretty much wild hogs, right?
Yeah.
And we would go on a 7 to 10 day trip every year in the late July. I've been as far as Key West, North Carolina, in the southeast. We went from St. Louis to Copper Harbor, Michigan, across underneath Lake Erie over to the Mississippi River, and back down through Iowa, or down through Michigan, and then Wisconsin, and then cross over into Iowa, and then down home. The most fun was we went through Sturgis. It was probably a week before Sturgis, so we went through Sturgis on our way north, went to Red Lodge, Montana, and then we rode the Chief Joseph Highway and Beartooth Pass, which are 2 hugely popular motorcycle destinations. Ended up in Cody, Wyoming, which is Buffalo Bill country, and then came back down through Colorado. We were in Jackson Hole. We went through Yellowstone, down through, like I said, Colorado, and then we cut over into Nebraska and came through the sand hills of Nebraska, and then ended up Cedar. I don't think it was Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but right there on the Iowa border between Iowa and Nebraska, and then came home. So it's and those rides, that was 2017, and that was my last long ride. I told these guys, I said, we were in Steamboat, Colorado. We were in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. We stayed at a friend's house that was right on the Snake River. I didn't get to fish. I didn't get to play golf. I didn't get to do anything but ride my bike 500 miles a day for 7 days straight. And I said, I can't do this anymore. That was like the 10th year in a row. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy.
How did you guys form this group? How did you all come together and get into riding together?
Well, I've always ridden. I've had motorcycles since I was 18. And at the time I was riding a BMW K1200 RS sport bike, full leathers, full coverage helmet, the whole bit. And I would go out on Highway 94, and the engine was never under 10,000 RPMs. It was a lot of fun. So this is mid-90s. All my buddies decide that was when Harleys were kind of coming back into the scene, and they were all buying bikes, and they all bought Harleys and custom bikes and all this stuff. And I was riding along on my BMW, and those turns I used to do at 60, I'm now doing at 30. And it's not really comfortable doing 30 on a sport bike. It just wasn't any fun. So I finally gave in, and I bought a Harley and joined that whole crowd. And I sold my Beamer to a heart surgeon out of Dallas, Texas. And he flew up, and I picked him up at the airport, and we got to the house, and it was because he asked me, he goes, are these recent pictures of your bike? And I said, I just took them before I posted it on eBay. That's how you sold stuff back then. And he said, if it's in that good a condition, I'll buy it. I'm done. I said, well, I promise you, I'll pay your airplane ticket if it's not what I say it is. And he loved it. And, so I had my Harley and I took him out to Highway 19. I took him down 94 all the way out to 19. And I said, okay, Dallas is that way. And 19 literally goes all the way to Texas from, it's just straight south. And I waited a couple days and I called his house and his wife answered the phone. And I just said, I told her my name and I sold the motorcycle to her husband. And I just called to make sure he made it home safe. She goes, made it home? I think he turned right somewhere in Oklahoma and now he's out in New Mexico and he's loving it and having a great time. So don't worry about him. I'm like, okay.
That's customer service there. You're checking in on the sale, after the sale.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was really a great guy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, if you don't make friends buying and selling stuff, you miss out, right? It's just, I know the guy I bought my first house from. He and his wife, I know him very well. I've kept in touch with him all these years, and that was back in the 80s. So that's how you develop networks and friends, and you just never burn a bridge ever.
You find that that's been, just as helpful in having fun riding motorcycles as it has your career too?
If it's not fun, it's not worth doing it, right? So whether it's riding motorcycles, fly fishing, playing golf, I do it as much as I can, some more than others. And, my motorcycle will sit for months sometimes, and I won't even get on it. And I probably play more golf than I do anything else, for fun and enjoyment. But through all the things I've done, I'm more proud and happy about the people I've met and the ones that I've remained friends with. Hell, when I came to talk to Jeff Bush, who is the president of this company, we were referred to each other by a banker in Clayton and at Parkside Financial. And Mike Murphy was his name. And Jeff and I shared 145 mutual connections on LinkedIn. Never met each other. But when we sat down and talked, he was looking for a director of finance. And I said, well, yeah, that's probably not something that I'm going to be interested in. Because I know where the salary is for that level title and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, well, now that we're sitting here and we're talking and I know what you're capable of, and we may change our path here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. And we talked money a little bit and I went away and we just agreed to get back together in 2 weeks. And we did. And I told him, I said, if you need a professional reference, just call one of those people on LinkedIn that we're connected to. Any one of them, doesn't matter. And it's powerful to have that.
Yeah. I've heard a quote recently. It was, what's better, the journey or the destination? And the answer is the company. And I feel like that cliche goes pretty firmly with your philosophy there towards your career and growing your network. And Ryan and I too, as we're growing this business and PEOMG and the podcast as well, we've experienced that too. It is about every connection, even if it's a small interaction, can lead to so much more. And it's always powerful to look at that list of your network as it's growing and say, like, yeah, you can speak with any one of those people, and I'm confident that you'll get a good reference from them. So those are great words of advice, Jim.
Piece of advice is that you don't always get along with everybody, right? And people have done me wrong over the years. And the way I look at it is, I forgive you, but you don't have a seat at the table anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of, I'm fine, you're fine,
Mm-hmm.
but I won't be calling kind of thing. So it all works. And you guys both know, it's like, you don't mesh with everybody 100%. It just doesn't happen. So you have to acknowledge that and be willing to forgive somebody if they have done you wrong and never carry it with you. So that's my other side of that coin.
No,
just
and I mean,
never carry it with you if it's bad. So
yeah, and I think it's got an interesting way to think about it, because the more we're at a time, and we will be in a time in 5 minutes. There's never been more technology, and there's never been more kind of automation in the things we do. But what I've always felt is that as the more high tech we become, the more we actually long for high touch and connection with people. We're presented with all these opportunities to do the exact opposite, but that at our core, we long for that. And so we seek that more in the relationships, that they're more authentic, they're more real, like they're the with all of the distraction I do have to relationships, the ones that I do have the ones that I actually have time for, like I need to be really meaningful, and I need to be able to count on those people. And I think that's, and that people do mess up, right? And so how do you move beyond that, and either one, give somebody a second chance, or two, not become entangled with whatever frustration comes around that. And it's but the world we live in, and the tech, and even the medium we're doing this through now, this is all going to push through people's phones. It's like, at the end of the day, these decisions, whether it's PEO or how a 786-mile bike ride get assembled, it's with people, and it's people sitting down and talking, and really, that's, since I've gotten to know you, it's, yes, we've been able to find PEOs for the businesses you've been involved and that you've influenced, but it's the conversation around the way you think about your people, the way you think about the business, and the way we just dialogue about concepts has been really the greatest joy I've had through our relationship.
Same here. Absolutely.
So we've got you on your journey to being a Renaissance man. You've been the CFO for, $500 million company. You're growing small businesses. You ride Harleys all over the place. But then you also had like a little stint trying to get into the U.S. Open. Tell us a little bit about that.
So 1996, I got a chance to go see a sports psychologist by the name of Bob Rotella. And he wrote a book called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect. And I read it on an airplane, and I was single and dating a woman at the time. And she's like, I bought like 20 of them. And I wrote in the inside cover to all my good friends, good golfing friends, about this book. And for my birthday, she gave me a trip to go see him. And he's like the mind doctor, he's a sports psychologist. He ran the sports psychology department at UVA in Charlottesville, Virginia. But a list of who's who in the PGA back then in the 90s, 80s, 90s, Tom Kite, just name Nick Price, Brad Faxon, just tons and tons of PGA Tour players and senior tour players. And I went to go see him, and I'd be on the couch in the morning, from like 9 to noon, and then we go play golf. And I had a great time. And he said, so when's your next tournament? I'm amateur, right? And I said, well, the Ozark Invitational's in Poplar Bluff next weekend, and I'm playing in that. And he said, do you know the course pretty well? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, do you have a yellow pad of paper? And I said, yeah, I do. He said, play the course in your mind on that yellow pad of paper. Draw the hole, play it, pick your club, know where you're going to hit it, know where you're going to put it on the green, the whole thing. And I am standing on the 17th tee, and a friend of mine is driving out of the golf course. He's finished with his round. And they used to call me Butchie when I was younger. He said, Butchie, how you doing? And I said, this means I'm even par. I was on 16 tee. Sorry. It was a par 3. And I go down and I par 16, and now I'm on 17 tee, even par. And long story short, again, I birdied 17 and 18, and now I'm 2 under. And it was the first time I'd ever broken par in my life, particularly in a competitive tournament. So the next day, I'm in the final group with all the people, all the who's who of Missouri amateur golf, and I just didn't know what to do with myself. So after 5 holes, I'm 7 over, and I kind of settled things down. And after 18 holes, I was 7 over. So I've ended up finishing like 12th. But that June is a U.S. Open qualifier, which I'd also signed up for. And I'm on the practice tee, and it's like tin cup. I'm like shanking the ball into 9 fairway. And I called Bob, and Darlene, his wife, answered the phone. And she said, "What's up, Jim?" And I said, "Well, I got to tee off in 45 minutes at U.S. Open qualifier, and I'm shanking it into the next fairway off the practice tee. And I just need to talk to him if I could get a hold of him." And he goes, "Well, he's in South Carolina with Tom Kite doing a program, and I'll reach out, and if he can call you, he will. I promise." And I said, "Okay." So long story short, he has this conversation with me for 10 minutes, and I'm cruising. I never hit the driver all day long. I just kept the ball in the middle of the fairway, and I'm on the 14th hole. It's a par 5. They're playing it as a par 4. I feel like I have to hit driver. Again, I'm sorry this is so long, but
No, I love it.
I go double on 15, and now I'm mad because I hooked it in the trees and it embedded in the ground. I had an embedded ball I didn't know. So then I'm angry on the second hole, and I'm going to try to get it all back, right? I do the same thing again and make double on 14 and 15. But I finished shooting 74, and I missed the cut to move on by 2 shots. I also got to go to the U.S. Open that year in June, or later in the month in June. And I walk out it was in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And I walk onto the golf course, and I'm standing next to number 1 tee, and I just said, "Thank you, Lord. I do not belong here." Because that fairway was like a bowling alley, and the rough was that tall. But it was fun because it was Tiger Woods' first tournament as a professional. He was the U.S. Open champion, or the U.S. Amateur champion. The U.S. Open champion was Phil Mickelson, and the Open champion was John Daly, believe it or not. Back then, he won the British Open. And so the 3 of them were playing together, and I followed them around that whole day when we were there, and it was really awesome. And that was my U.S. Open experience.
Really
and there's another one, but I'm going to let that go because
Love that.
Fantastic. We'll save the other one for episode 2.
There we go.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
by popular demand for sure. After some of the great stories there.
So let me ask you this. Jim, you've bought PEOs many times. We've worked on them. You have your how you look at them and how they help operationalize for growth. What do you look at when someone is coming in, though? Like, kind of focusing the conversation a little bit on like the sales professional that's coming into the room. Like, what do you want from them? Like, what is most meaningful? What helps you to figure out what's best? Because I think a good chunk of the listeners of our podcast are active PEO sales rep. They're kind of on Rick's journey as well. And I think, you get conflicting information, whether it's from sales leaders in the respected PEO or from negative reinforcement of bad experiences where maybe you do the wrong thing, but it works out to a PEO sale. I think someone with the depth of experience in these kind of conversations, and from your chair, not only as CEO at some organizations, CFO at others, like you bring a really interesting, almost like guiding light on how to approach these conversations for, the PEO sales rep that's sitting out here listening.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is know your craft, know what's important to your customer, and execute appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
But the people who are trying to sell you something that you don't need or want, or they think you need or want, but they never really asked you in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here, I've got something to sell you, as opposed to, what can I do for you? What is your biggest pain point in the HR space, as an example? And it's that interaction that kind of drives the conversation from that point forward. And some people are really open and thoughtful and realize the need that when you connect with someone at that level, it becomes a more emotional transaction and a more friendly environment as opposed to, like always looking over your shoulder to see if they're going to, try to blow something by you. And it doesn't, they don't ever have to think about it. They don't ever have to do it per se, but their demeanor on the front end is huge in the sense that I think it's really important to understand the customer, what they're asking for, what they dislike the most about HR, right? Because people, and you'll get a different answer from everybody. And, or what would you like to accomplish with us? As a PEO, first, I have a really good understanding of what a PEO is. Not everybody does. So that co-employment piece is kind of a tricky place to navigate, if you will. But at the end of the day, if you can, set their mind at ease relative to that and really talk about the things that they're looking to accomplish at the end of the day, that's the most important part. A lot of people call PEOs and have no idea what to even expect. And I have had that luxury of knowing, buying benefits for 2,500 people and 25 people and what that means and how that all plays out. And, it just, I think that's probably it's more of a relationship oriented sale than a, hey, I got these eggs, I want to sell you, kind of thing. It's really, because it truly is, because I've always had relationships and communication with the person that sold me on the whole thing in the first place, because it is a consultative kind of area. And, being there for the employer, I think, is a big deal when you need that, and, kind of setting the stage to really address all of their needs the best way you can. And listen, right?
That's it.
Ask the question and then make sure you listen. It's probably
Genuinely
the best
listen,
advice I could give anybody, really.
No, I think, and that rings really true with myself as well, coming into a role where, in an industry where it's a very consultative sale. That's been one of the adjustments for me, is being able to, not hear things like I've been maybe trained in the past where like this is a rebuttal, but actually hear that, no, this is actually a concern that a person has who is responsible for other people in their organization, and kind of have that be more of a holistic view of how do we arrive at a solution for them as people, and not, just as moving them through a sales funnel. And so I think not only your approach to how to, you have a network that you curate over time, but also just how you, how you treat the people around you, I think is speaks volumes of how, it can use that in a PEO relationship and a consultative sale. Because, a lot of times, you're right, you said it was a very sometimes emotional sale. And we sit down with these business owners and, you notice they open up a lot about their organizations to us and about the things that are going on that you've noticed they haven't spoken to about with anybody else. And then it becomes a very, you really feel the impact of what you're able to do for them in those moments when they're saying, like, I do genuinely need help and I really care about my people here. And so that's been one of the greatest benefits in this industry for myself, is being able to really look behind the curtain of small businesses and see people behind them who, really do need help, and be able to deliver that to them.
The smaller the client, the smaller the company, the more important it is from their ability to provide for their employees. And that perfect example is, when we decided to go with TriNet, I came back to Ryan after we said we're going to do this, and I said, would you please price these different benefits for me? Cost per employee, employer paid. And we were able to fill some gaps and do some things for employee only and some other stuff that I think really is adding a huge benefit to the employee, but also as an employer, feeling really good that we were able to do these things, and it all worked out great, because it wasn't that we necessarily wanted to save money. We wanted to shift that a little bit, right? So by going the PEO route and having the big buying power that PEOs have, we were able to add all the admin, add all the things, and then even come back and even add more benefits, because you see that after you see the tech demos and all the different things and the tools that they provide to onboard, offboard, manage, protect yourself, all that stuff, it's a big deal that you could never duplicate yourself. And so, I mean, I'm saying this in a conversational way, but it's really more recognizing those sale points that, hey, I'm going to get a better deal on the benefits. So that's going to lower my employees' costs on a sharing situation. But that means I can pay 75% of their dental. And I can provide life and some other things, vision, all these things. And then it's really a full complement. The 401k didn't have one before. And we've got a lot of young people in the plant working, and I can't wait for the day that I can talk to them about saving.
Yeah.
Me sitting here, because they have no idea. They're young. They're still on their parents' insurance, so, which is great. I mean, but it's kind of a funny thing because our census was low.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all of that kind of pins back to what you said about like actively listening. Because I think what happens in we'll call it the greater PEO Salesforce universe out there, is that you are carrying your particular banner of PEO, and with it, its particular product set and cost structure. And then you are immediately configuring on how to get it to work for this business, whether it's Jim's business, whether it's, Rick's business, or what have you. And you're not actively listening because you've already kind of built up this library of experience of like where all the no's came from. And so you're trying to attack it. And that's how you start talking about like pet insurance, which Jim might not care about, right? And or like all these other like little bells and whistles that don't mean anything, when Jim already told you like, hey, listen, let's operationalize, let's do all these things, but the risk, the liability, and the fact you're going to allow me to offer better benefits and more benefits to employees, it's all I need. You can stop your selling. Like you got me, because you focused in on the things that mattered. And that's enough. And that's enough for a PEO in a situation to work, is that if you hit the priorities of that organization, not every other piece has to line up. They can just be things that are available or not as important, and you certainly shouldn't spend time talking about them. And so I think at the end of so many PEO evaluation processes that people sit through, they are fatigued because they spent more time talking about the things they didn't care about than the things they actually do. And then it falls apart. It's just like, people buy that from people they like and understand them. And so like, maybe you like this person, maybe you don't, but they certainly didn't understand what was important to me, because they sure as hell talked a lot about pet insurance, and I don't have a pet. So,
Yes, along those lines.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I would also say that as a salesperson, you can't change the culture, right? So if an employer says, I've got a lot of turnover, I just don't, you can't help them. As a PEO, you can't promise them anything that's going to change a culture that doesn't keep people, right? That's the only negative part I'll say is, you're going to find somebody that wants you to fix all their problems. And if it's turnover, it's not something you can fix. You can certainly try to help, but if it's a bad culture to start with, and you can learn that in that initial conversation, that I don't know that if I were in your business and I had a conversation like that to start my relationship with the person, that'd be a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a sale that I'd think about not worrying about, because you know where I'm coming. I mean, and there are cultures that are kind of just blasé.
Mhm.
People just come to work and do their thing. And, you know, you have moments of brilliance, but for the most part, everybody's pretty comfortable and there's not a lot of turnover. There's not a lot of, lightning bolt ideas, but at the same time, the company's moving
Mhm.
and you just need someone to administrate and take care of all that stuff. That's fine. But if it's a toxic culture going in, it's going to be it's difficult for you to be successful because you can't fix that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. It's PEOs are solutions for small to medium-sized business, and then it's more so in certain areas of culture and growth, right? Like if you're focused on growing, there's things you can tap into. If there's a culture you want to maintain or guard and bring things in around it that will only add to it, absolutely. But I've sat in rooms or Zooms where a PEO sales rep be like, "You've got a bad culture." Oh, okay, well, we'll put PEO X in and we'll help you fix like one, that's not true. And two, that's disingenuous to the issue of actually what's going on. Like that you can just drop your service in that's $140 per person per month and it's just going to change a toxic culture. That's it's not true. And I'm sure at some level that decision maker also knows that. Like that business owner goes like, you're not fixing this, and now you're kind
And
of
you
lying to
may
me.
have somebody in your organization that actually can help do something about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's not something that a PEO is going to fix.
No. Now, I wanted to double click into something you said earlier, because around co-employment, this is something that comes up on calls all the time that I think, frankly, sales reps are ill-equipped to address a lot of times. They can talk about what it is, the fact it's IRS certified, the fact that, there's, how this whole relationship works. But there is this kind of chasm that people have to jump to get comfortable with it. How did you get comfortable with it? How did you inspect it? And like, ultimately, what is your experience with this co-employment concept altogether?
My first experience was with Insperity. So, and we talked at length about it. And, we were in complete control from a management perspective of all the employees and the staff and the decision-making about comp and all that stuff. And really, it was transparent
Mhm.
to a great degree. I mean, I know that it's a co-employment, that they're actually employees of the PEO, not of ours. But I've also moved away from Insperity, and those employees were still ours. And it's how we managed the background HR piece of it that was different. And that was as seamless a transfer as going in. And especially when we do it on a calendar year basis,
Mhm.
all the tax stuff aligns like the stars. It's really a non-event.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's helpful for people to hear, like not only one, the salespeople that might be listening, but some of the customers that are out there wondering, hey, this I refer to as like a Stargate. Like you kind of have to walk through it to see on the other side it's actually fine. Like it's scary. Co-employment, who's in charge, what's going to happen? Is somebody going to come in and fire one of my favorite employees? Or are they going to make me, do something, not allow me to raise somebody's income that I feel that earns it? Whatever they concoct, it's legitimate because they're worried about it. To be able to hear from, someone not only with your experience, but also credibility around it, that, hey, it doesn't change. It's things you should inspect. It's things you should dive into and understand for yourself. But at the end of the day, you're offloading that risk for a window of time that you're with a PEO. And then as soon as you unhinge from that PEO, and if you don't go into a different one, that's coming back to you, and so are the employees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I would say that difficult conversations that I had with the HR team at Insperity was very well done, and they're very intelligent people. It never got unruly. It just never got sideways, ever. It never got sideways. And there were a couple of different situations that we had to deal with, that we terminated one person for putting some really inappropriate stuff out on social media. And I sadly had to share some of the pictures, and, it was like, okay, that's enough. I don't need to see any more.
Yeah.
And they were fine. I mean, we were in lockstep the whole time, regardless of.
Yeah. I think that's great for people here too, because there's not only the co-employment concept and what does it mean and how does that change responsibility or my ability to make a decision, but also what does some situations that I can't even fathom going through on my own with no sounding board or, somebody to dialogue around this with, like, what would that feel like? And you have that, and you have that in an outsourced HR function. And the fact that they will bring it back to you, that conversation back in a way that is culturally aligned, respectful to maybe the concern you're having about how to make a decision, and like really engage with you versus just give you HR orders or best practices, I think is important, because that's a part of the whole customer experience. You're tapping into experts, and you don't want just edicts. You want empathy and engagement for what that decision is going to have to feel like if it ultimately results in having to terminate an employee. So
Terrific. Well, Jim, I just want to, thank you for coming on. I think we've had a really valuable conversation from your perspective. Everybody else we've had on here has kind of been in the PEO industry itself. And so to hear from you and from your side, I think is going to be really valuable for our listeners. And also, you're just a hell of an interesting guy, Jim. So next time you're planning one of those fishing trips, you want to go golfing, definitely let us know. I don't know if I can keep up with you on a Harley or anything, but we'll definitely have to get out and hit a few golf balls here soon.
I told Jim, I said, I'll go on one of these trips with you, but I just need you to put one of those like sidecars on the side of his Harley and just tow me around, to which I was met with a chuckle and absolutely not. That will never happen.
You and the golf clubs in the sidecar.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'll just be driving behind. No, I really appreciate you coming on. Okay.
Wow. I can imagine.
Hmm. Yeah. That's so what I hear there is not only is Jim a Renaissance man, but when I hear bike, custom paint, trailer, custom paint, golf clubs in the back, clothes for the weekend, it's a man who's got it all figured out. And that's not just in the world of PEO, but in everything else. That's awesome. There it is. Nothing but fun.
That's awesome. What I'm hearing is that you are a smart man who outsources to the trailer. Is that right? Is that kind of a PEO segue there? I think so. Well, thank you again, Jim. I also have to shout out one of our most avid Wagoneer listeners, Doug. I know you're tuning in, so thanks for tuning in to every episode in 1 week. Also, shout out to our listeners in Germany and Japan. Thanks for this. There's not even PEOs in Germany or Japan, but we appreciate you guys. So,
Yep.
And most of all, Jim, thank you again, sir, for coming on. We certainly do appreciate it.